Russian President Vladimir Putin says the Kremlin will consider any foreign troop deployment on Ukrainian soil as legitimate targets for destruction.
Protests by the families of the remaining hostages are planned across Israel on Saturday, marking 700 days since Hamas's attack on October 7th.
The city of Lisbon has demanded an external investigation into the funicular crash that killed 16 on Wednesday.
Bulgaria's Prime Minister Rosen Zhelyadkov says investigations show no Russian foul play in a jamming incident of a plane carrying Ursula von der Leyen. Russian President Vladimir Putin says it's practically impossible to reach an agreement with Ukraine on key issues to end the war. Delivering a keynote address at the Eastern Economic Forum, Putin said that Moscow will consider any foreign troop deployment on Ukrainian soil as a legitimate target. Putin added that he sees no sense in the presence of a foreign military contingent in Ukraine so long as appropriate decisions are made to build a foundation for lasting peace. He also stressed that he'll not permit Western countries to instate any security guarantees that threaten Russia's national security. Putin argued that his country's security considerations must also be acknowledged and guaranteed to open a path for meaningful progress in the US-led truce efforts. The Russian president reiterated the Kremlin's resolute objection to Ukrainian NATO membership, but noted that Moscow does not reject the premise of Kyiv in the EU, which he says is Ukraine's legitimate choice. His comments came after Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky and France's Emmanuel Macron announced on Thursday that 26 European states were prepared to deploy a reassurance force to Ukraine post-war. The two leaders spoke after a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, noting that the plan must have the backing of the United States to move forward. U.S. President Donald Trump did not comment on the European proposal, but said on Thursday that he plans to hold further talks with Putin soon, with whom he keeps a very good dialogue.
I will be.
Protests organized by the families of the remaining hostages are planned across Israel on Saturday, marking 700 days since Hamas's attack on October 7th. Demonstrations marking the attack, which killed 1,200 people and took 251 hostages into the Gaza Strip, are set to take place in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. At least 48 are still believed to be held in the Strip, with 20 understood to still be alive. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum, which campaigns for the release of hostages, called for Israel and Hamas to sit down at the negotiating table. It has campaigned against Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to take over Gaza City, where Israel says Hamas have created a vast tunnel network. Netanyahu has called up at least 60,000 reservists to support the plan, which has sparked criticism both home and abroad. Meanwhile, ceasefire efforts between Hamas and Israel have stalled, with both sides sticking to conflicting demands. Talks on a temporary ceasefire, which would have seen at least some hostages returned, broke down when U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff walked away from the deal, blaming Hamas. Israel has stuck to its plan to take over Gaza City until all hostages are returned and Hamas surrenders.
With no peace deal in sight, Kyiv's allies have gathered on Thursday in Paris to discuss security guarantees, with U.S. President Donald Trump dialing in. French President Emmanuel Macron said that 35 nations are now part of the so-called Coalition of the Willing, and 26 of them have pledged to help Ukraine post-war by sending either troops or equipment. Not on the front lines, he said, but in deterrence roles on land, at sea or in the air once a ceasefire is reached. Macron also insisted that there should be no limit to the support that Ukraine receives, not just to defend itself, but to also stop Russia from ever striking again. He also confirmed that this is no longer just talk. There's now an official military planning document. And Germany, Italy and Poland, once skeptical of this whole idea, have also pledged to participate. But the French leader refused to reveal any more details, saying that he refuses to hand Russia any strategic information. And finally, the leaders have also agreed to launch more sanctions along with the US if Moscow keeps rejecting any peace deal.
Portugal is mourning the death of 16 people after the Gloria funicular in Lisbon derailed and crashed on Wednesday. Earlier, it was reported 17 people had died. This number has now been corrected to 16 fatalities. Prime Minister Luis Montenegro said the crash was one of the greatest human tragedies in the country's history.
Estamos em contacto com as famílias das vítimas nacionais e estrangeiras, nomeadamente através do Ministério dos Negócios Estrangeiros, sempre que haja lugar à identificação das pessoas e das nacionalidades que vão sendo confirmadas.
The mayor of Lisbon, Carlos Moedas, assured that all efforts are in place to find the cause of the incident. The company that operates Lisbon streetcars and buses, Keras, said it has opened its own investigation.
Pedi ao presidente da Carris que não só abrisse uma investigação interna, ontem à noite, mas também uma investigação externa, independente, que apure todas as responsabilidades no mais curto espaço de tempo. Em relação a todos os outros funiculares da cidade, uma vistoria imediata está a ser feita e só voltarão a funcionar depois desta.
The accident also resulted in more than 24 injuries, 5 of whom are in critical condition. The injured were transported to various hospitals in Lisbon.
Bulgarian officials have denied claims they suspect Moscow of jamming the GPS signal of a plane carrying European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. It comes just days after the Commission cited Bulgarian authorities as suggesting that the incident was due to blatant interference from Russia. Bulgarian Prime Minister Rosen Zhelyatskov told Parliament on Thursday that von der Leyen's plane had not experienced prolonged interference or jamming. In a later statement, the Bulgarian premier noted that although no jamming was detected by ground instruments, onboard devices could have detected it. Von der Leyen's plane, according to tracking data, appears to have circled around for 9 minutes before landing at Plovdiv airport. Some analysts believe the plane's GPS signal could have fallen victim to spoofing instead of jamming. Spoofing is a highly sophisticated practice largely accessible to state-level actors and is undetectable by conventional instruments. A telecommunications engineer told Euronews that a plane with a good signal, going around in circles, is usually an indicator of spoofing. Other analysts believe the aircraft's GPS could have simply been malfunctioning, which would also explain the incident. Zhelyatskov says he's ordered authorities to carry out further investigations into the issue.
In July, sectarian clashes in Syria killed thousands and displaced many more. The leader of the Druze community in Israel recently visited Brussels to seek support from European officials. Euronews met with him.
طبعا جئنا لنرفع صوتنا وصوت أهلنا في سوريا في جبل العرب جبل الدروز بعد الأوضاع التي آلت إليها والأحداث والمجازر التي حدثت هناك. ننتظر أن العالم الاتحاد الأوروبي وأمريكا طبعا وجميع العالم إعادة المخطوفين بأسرع وقت ممكن، إعادة المهجرين إلى بيوتهم وإلى قراهم، إعادة الإحياء الطبيعية وإدخال المساعدات الإنسانية إلى أهلنا في السويداء.
According to independent war monitor, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, 2,000 Druze were killed in Suwaida in clashes with Sunni Bedouin tribes backed by government militias.
كان هناك تعديات على العلويين وكان مذابح كبيرة، وبعدها كان هناك تعديات على إخوتنا المسيحيين أيضا، وبعدها كان التعدي والمجازر التي حدثت في السويداء وضواحيها القتل والاغتصاب والنهب والسلب والسرقة. أكثر من 230 ألف مهجر من قراهم، واليوم يوجد حصار كبير على السويداء، لا يوجد كهرباء، لا يوجد ماء، لا يوجد دواء، لا يوجد حليب للأطفال.
Amid the deteriorating security situation in Syria, Israel launched strikes on government convoys in Damascus, saying it was acting to protect the Druze.
نحن لا نمثل الحكومة الإسرائيلية، احنا جئنا هنا من أجل أبناء الطائفة الدرزية، ولكن للأسف الشديد العالم بدون شك أنا إسرائيلي، بس أنا هنا موجود كدرزي. يعني لو لم يكن هناك تدخل إسرائيلي لأبيدت الطائفة الدرزية في السودان.
هل تبرره؟
بدون شك. هل بدون شك أنه كان هناك إبادة، ولو لم يكن تدخل لأبيدت الطائفة الدرزية في السودان.
Aid agencies have urged the international community to send much-needed funding to Afghanistan after a major earthquake killed at least 1,400 people and injured thousands more. Only a handful of countries have committed money since the 6.0 magnitude quake struck several mountainous provinces, leaving villages trapped under rubble. The European Union and the United Kingdom are donating $1 million each to help, with the cash going to aid organisations and sidestepping the Taliban government, which they do not recognise. Australia and South Korea have also donated $1 million each. Taliban authorities have appealed for international help despite deep aid cuts that have befallen the government. International funding to Afghanistan has fallen dramatically since the Taliban took over, with only 28% of the humanitarian funding target met this year. Without aid, rescue teams have struggled to reach affected communities in the rugged Kunar region, where roads are blocked by landslides and rockfalls. The earthquake is the third major quake since the Taliban seized power in 2021 and the latest crisis to beset the country. Afghanistan is reeling from deep cuts to aid funding, a weak economy, and millions of people forcibly returned from Iran and Pakistan.